Hi, my name is Jacob Manchester. I work for the hit toy company down the street. Despite being purchased in 2002, I still enjoyed most of the episodes we made for season 6, like Gordon Takes a Tumble or Percy's Chocolate Crunch. However, season 5 is typically one of my favorite seasons out of all of them. It had more actions and destruction, as most of the other seasons were much calm and aesthetic. Duncan Gets Spooked was easily one of my favorite episodes of Season 5, as it contained lots of dark elements you wouldn't see in a kid's cartoon. I'll keep this book safe in my supplies until later. I'll catch you up if anything happens. It's October 12th, 2002. We had a meeting on making a new episode called Thomas, Percy, and the Squeak. Thomas and Percy are obviously the main characters. There's a new character that's going to be part of the story called Alicia Body. She's a famous opera singer who's coming to Sodor for a concert, and the engines are wondering who would take her to the venue at the castle. We finished our meeting, so we walked out of the facility to end our job. When I was walking down the hallway, I noticed a seam of tape. It was an episode of Duncan Gets Spooked. I also noticed that the tape had more wording on it, such as Morse code, which I couldn't understand at the time. Well, since this is a Duncan Gets Spooked episode, I want to take it home. I looked up the Morse code on my Windows XP I got for Christmas. The Morse code in English said early reel, so this means it might be an early copy of it, and I never attended the meeting at that time. So I said, maybe I can go through the archives. So that's what I did. I drove down to my grandma's house and asked her if she had a VHS player I can borrow. She said I could take it, as she really doesn't even need one anymore. She stopped using it when DVDs became a thing, and I gotta admit, it's way better than the VHS. I hooked up the VHS to the TV, and then I put in the tape. Oh boy, can't wait to watch this glory episode. Except, it was static. Oh great, it's probably gonna take a while for it to load. While it was on VHS for a while, I decided to go get myself a Pop-Tart and a can of Dr. Pepper before it started. And just like that, it just started working. I watched the intro, and it played the Thomas theme song, except it did not show the footage of it, except it showed a picture of a house. It looked familiar. Once the intro stopped, it went on to the episode of Duncan Gets Spooked. The footage played out as normal, and it was in good quality, except the narrator was not there speaking. Maybe it was a failed redub. There were voice acting for the characters, but Alec Baldwin's voice sounded really weird. It sounded a bit glitched out, something you hear if a VHS wasn't working properly. I took out the tape for a second, and decided to look through it to see if there's any damage. I looked again. That's weird. There's no damage on there. What's wrong with it? I popped it back in and just watched. It'd probably go away soon. The scene started as normal. Peter Sam was just waiting at the hill to get a water. The trucks did find a way to break away and caused to fall off the bridge. However, when Peter and Sam arrived at the scene of the accident, they knew they were in trouble. And like his driver said, Sir Topperhead was pretty annoyed. Peter and Sam would have to work at the yards until further notice. Duncan is seen in the background laughing at him. He starts making fun of him about ghosts jumping in the night. What was weird is that when I did help make Duncan Get Spooked, I remember the lines from part. But this early reel, Duncan said some things that were a bit out of topic about what happened. I shrugged it off and kept watching. Rusty seemed to notice that Peter Sam was getting bullied by Duncan. And who's to say you're not afraid of ghosts? Ghost! Heh. There's that bump in the night. Rubbish! Well, I'll tell you a story that'll make your funnel quiver. Those voices got a bit heavy in that part for some reason. I don't know what that was. Rusty tells the story of a ghost train that never made it to the other side of the bridge. It fell off halfway and never was found again. Legend has it, you could always see its silhouette at night at the scene of the crime. Duncan didn't believe the story and decided to leave. However, when he left the sheds, it sounded like Alec Baldwin whispers something. I replayed the footage just to hear the whisper. I turned it up all the way, and I heard the words, "Oh dear." I don't remember hearing that in any of the lines that I helped make with Duncan Gets Spooked. Rusty then cheers up here Sam a bit, and that's when his driver and fireman decided to come up with a plan. Even Duncan's driver was in it. The next day, Duncan went to the lead mines to work for the entire day. As I mentioned in the early reel, there were some things that probably have changed at that time. Duncan jumped over the bridge, as he mimicked what Rusty said from last night. They worked all day in the lead mines. If we don't go there now, then Scarlo's gonna take my favorite place in the sheds. As I already know, Duncan was starting to get pretty scared. As night fall, Duncan finished up the job and decided to take some trucks back to the other side of the island. He got to the bridge and stopped halfway, only to see a silhouette in the distance. It looked like the ghost train silhouette, except it had a little bit more features than the Fireflies. It looked like exactly like Scarlowe, except the eyes were pitch black, and the whole body was a ghost silhouette, and the whole body was mostly gray. As it faded out, the driver threw the rock over the bridge side and dropped it into the lake below. Duncan reached his breaking point and decided to head back home, where he finally rested in the shed. As I waited for the credits to roll, I realized it was still going. The driver and fireman knew that the story was all fake. However, it wasn't. Alec Baldwin's voice was never heard again. It was pitch silent. All you can see is Duncan sleeping for about 1.5 minutes. That's when I heard an unsettling whistle. It sounded like an angry group of whales humming. I've got goosebumps from that, and it's kinda scared me a bit. I pan towards the rails right next to Duncan, as I see a steam engine chopping in right next to Duncan. It was the same ghost engine as before. However, the details on the ghost train was now terrifying. Its eyes were bleeding from their sockets, and the ghost engine was breathing very heavily. That's when all sound stopped. The scene stayed on the screen for 30 seconds. It showed the ghost train up close, with a loud piercing scream. The swamp water was dripping out of his mouth, and the swamp water was gushing out of his mouth. It soon cut to black, but faded in to the next scene. This was Duncan's point of view now, and as I can see in the distance, the ghost train is charging at Duncan at full speed. It cut to black before it even showed the screen. However, the audio was not cutting. I heard a loud crash and blood gushing everywhere, along with the sound of bone crackling as he screamed in pain. For 12 seconds, nothing happened. That's when an image of Duncan's face. His body was really dismantled in the background. However, his smoke box and his face were the most notable in this scene. His eyeballs were rolling into the back of the head, as most of the blood is spewing out from the eye sockets. Mouth was also dripping from the mouth as well, which looked oddly terrifying for a kid's cartoon. I'm talking way scarier, like Nightmare on Elm Street type scary. It showed the ghost engine again at the crime scene. I saw a bloody smile on one of the windows, and that's when the episode ends. It just stayed in static for a little while before it cut it to black. What the hell did I just witness? I can't relive that moment from now on. I decided to talk to Britt Allcroft, who doesn't own the show anymore. I asked her if she knew anything about the early reel. Well, Britt, I don't want to talk about this incident, and don't you dare mention anything about her. Who's her? Just get out. I decided to give up and just leave her alone. However, I want to figure out who made this tape. Better yet, I want to figure out who her is.